Okay, welcome to Maximize Your Leadership Through Personal Growth. I think this is going to be a great hour-ish session talking about how we can grow as leaders by applying what I think a lot of people often forget about that's really important in our leadership, which is our growth. So I'm Judd. I'm the CTO and a partner at Manifest Solutions, and I've been there for about 10 years full-time, and I was there for about 13 years as a subcontractor. We're just a mid-sized consulting company here in Columbus, Ohio. I'm also a John Maxwell certified trainer, speaker, and what else do I do with them? Coach. So in that leadership realm. I'm also a Java champion, so I am very technical in nature, so I am a little curious. How many people do we have here who frequently write code? Okay, that's about what I expected. Okay. So I'm going to bring a little bit of a technical flair to it. But if you're not familiar with the Java champion, there's about 300 of us in the world who have been designated as Java champions for our efforts within the Java community. And part of that came about from writing books. So I've co-authored 3 Java-related books, and I've also written a children's book. And I also lead the Central Ohio Java Users Group, which I've been doing for over 20 years. When I talk a lot to people who are early in their career, sometimes even later in their career, they ask me a lot of questions like, what's going on? Why have I stalled in my career? How come I'm not advancing maybe as fast as the other people around me? What are they doing that's different? I also hear a lot of, I have great ideas. I share them all the time. Why aren't people following me? Why am I always the one that is having to follow somebody else? So I hope we can answer some of these questions today. And I think we need to first ask the question is, are we growing? What are we doing in our daily lives to make sure that we're growing, not just trying to grow the people around us? Because I assume that a lot of you, since you didn't raise your hand for writing code every day, you're probably leading a lot of people. Are you investing in yourself as much as you're investing in them? Because people really want to follow other people who are growing and changing, and then can help them grow and change as well. So I think it's important to set a couple guidelines of terms before we get too far along. So in the title, we had leadership. So I'm curious, what do you think leadership is? What is your definition of leadership? Yes?
Somebody you want to follow.
Somebody you want to follow. Great definition.
Like coaching.
Coaching. Somebody that can coach and mentor people along. Absolutely. What else?
Taking a group to the same goal, leading a group to the goal.
Yeah, leading a group to a shared goal. Absolutely. Well, whenever I have a definition, I always like to go to Webster's dictionary. And the Webster's definition is the capacity to lead or, what is the other one? An office or position of a leader. I don't know about you, but I hate that definition. It means nothing really at all, and there's no interest in it. So the definition I like to use is one by John Maxwell, who's a very common leadership guru. And John's definition is leadership is influence, nothing more, nothing less. And so I really adhere to this definition, and I use it in a lot of ways. So when I am talking to people and they're like, why do I not have followers? I often ask them, well, who are you influencing? And often that definition, since I work with a lot of technical people, is, well, the person I pair program with, or the developer to my left, or the developer to my right. Well, that's not a really big sphere of influence, right? You're very limited then to how they can feed into you and then how you can feed back into them. Eventually, they'll probably raise to a level where they become a tech lead. And when they're a tech lead, they have a little bit more influence. They have the members of their team. And they can help them grow, they can help influence them, move them along to that common path, but that is still a very limited because you're still within the same boundaries of your organization, the same company. And that's, again, a small sphere of influence. So what I always like to encourage people is to increase that influence even more. And this can have real impacts on your career. I've met with several people through my initiatives at COHAA where they've been let go from an organization and they call me up and say, Chris, can we do lunch? And I'm like, sure. As you can tell, I like free lunch, so of course I'm willing to accept the lunch. And often they'll say, I've been let go. I realize now I've spent the last 15 years only focused on growing my relationships within the company I'm at. And now I have no one else around me that I can go find in my network to help me find that next opportunity, that next place to grow. And I think that's really a sad place to be in when you don't have that. So one of the real advantages of increasing that influence is that you have places to go. You have a network that you can interact with and go to after that organization is no longer, you can be a part of that organization for whatever reason, especially during these times. So I highly encourage people to do all types of activities outside their organization. And it doesn't have to be standing on stage. You can participate in all the work behind the scenes. So one of the things I do is I help with conference organization. That's a great way of meeting a network outside your group. And especially in that type of environment, you have quite a strong bond because you're helping put on a big event that has to go well, and you can work together doing that. Maybe it's helping with the local user group. Maybe it's helping find speakers. Maybe it's helping them find sponsors, or just organizing the room, going there and cleaning up, or getting it ready for everybody. So there's a lot of things you can do to increase that sphere of influence. And what we like to recommend is that we encourage people, because it can be a little scary at first to get involved in something, especially if you don't know people, is to first attend these types of events. So you've obviously made a big effort here. You're at this conference, so you are attending. So that's the first step. And start attending more and more events. You'll get to meet people and increase that sphere of influence. Next is to start participating. Some of the examples I gave before. Ask the members of that organization that you're attending, what can I do to help? Where are you needing people, hands to get stuff done? I want to participate. I want to be there and be involved. After you've done that for a little while, then hopefully you get an opportunity to lead. You can either step forward, it can still be behind the scenes, you could run the conference from behind the scenes, you could get on the stage, you can speak, you can do all types of things. So there is a nice gradual way to get involved. And we're lucky here in Columbus that we have so many great user groups, we have a lot of great conferences, and you can actually lead in very strong ways behind the scenes. I think we also need to define what is success. So what do people use as a definition of success?
When they succeed.
Sorry, what?
When they succeed, whether it's at a goal or I finished a book that I really wanted to read, depends on what exactly the aim was and whether or not you accomplished it, and most people consider that success if they accomplish whatever they set out to do.
Absolutely. So when you accomplish your goal, that is a definition of success. Absolutely. Anybody else have a definition?
Achieving the result as per your expectation of error.
Exceeding your expectation of error, is that what you said?
Achieving your result as per your expectation or better.
Okay, achieving your result or better, sure. Well, hopefully your definition of success is not this. Unfortunately, in today's age, a lot of people think that that is success. They all want to be Elon Musk and be a billionaire. That seems to be everybody's goal these days. But I like Jim Rowan's definition for success. Oh, sorry, this is education, since we're talking about personal goals. Formal education will make you a living. Education will make you a fortune. Here's a Webster definition. Favorable or desirable outcome. But my favorite definition goes back to John Maxwell. Success is knowing your purpose in life. So what were you on this place on this planet to do? Growing to your maximum potential. So where you are to where you can actually achieve, where you can get to. And then finally, sowing the seeds into other people to help other people become successful. And we'll end the presentation with that as a goal. So, why is growth important in our leadership? Well, I've given all of you a rubber band, so if you want to pull that out right now. And what do we know about a rubber band? It stretches, right? If it doesn't stretch, does it really help us or provide any value? So if I have these two pens that I want to hold together and I place them inside my rubber band, are the pens going to stay together? No, because they're not stretched, right? So as leaders, we need to stretch ourselves, just like the rubber band, for us to be successful and to help invest and share into other people and get other people to lead us. So we are going to be in uncomfortable situations much of the time. And you know you're uncomfortable when you are actually trying to achieve this in your area of growth, because you've gone beyond what feels comfortable and natural. And leadership and growth is important because our capacity to grow will be determined by our capacity to lead. What we can invest into people is based on how we are growing and what we know. So there's 3 different mindsets I see people in. And I'll be honest, I stole the last 2 from John Maxwell in his book, Developing the Leader Within You 2.0. But I think he fell short in having the 3rd mindset, which I've added to this chart. And unfortunately, a lot of people I see tend to fall into the first mindset, the hope mindset. Ideally, you're in the goals mindset or even in the growth mindset. And by doing that, you are advancing your career. So somebody who's in the hope mindset is typically focused on themselves and what they can get out of things. Where somebody who has a goal mindset is focused on the destination, right? They've set a goal. They said, I want to accomplish X. And then hopefully they get there. But then what's next? And in a growth mindset people are focused on a journey. So it's not just arriving to where you want to arrive to, but actually what all has to take place to get to that place. And I like to liken it to running a half marathon. So I've run 10 half marathons in my life, and I always thought about goals and wanting to achieve a goal. And what I realized through the process of training for half marathons is it wasn't really about running the race and getting to a time that I wanted to accomplish, because there was absolutely no way I was going to win a half marathon. But it was really about that journey. And what I mean by the journey is I became more fit, I lost weight, I felt better, my clothes fit better, and it was the journey. Even if I could go run a half mile today without training, I would get nothing out of it, right? What it takes is that journey for all these other things to grow. And the same thing happens for your leadership and what you're learning and growing along the way. So a hope mindset is usually about self-gratification. Again, what can we get out of it? Where a goal mindset is how can we motivate other people? So how can we get other people interested in accomplishing their goals as well? And for a goal mindset, it's how do we mature people? How do we get them on the growth to continue growth too? For hope mindset, instant gratification is their goal, and a lot of people were buying cryptocurrency recently in order to hopefully strike it rich in a very short period of time to get the instant gratification. Where goal set mind people are seasonal. They're really focused on that particular goal for that particular season, and then once it's done, it's done. Where growth mindset people are in it for the long term. They want to grow and learn throughout their entire life, continuing to get better even into late ages. Hope mindset affects nobody because, again, they're focused on themselves, so they're not worried about other people. Where goal mindset, we are trying to challenge people. We are also trying to get other people to find a goal and to accomplish that goal. Growth mindset, we are trying to change people, change their lives, get them interested in becoming lifelong learners as well. Hope mindset are focused on dreams. Goal mindset people, they're focused on getting their goal, but then upon reaching their goal, then there's what's the next goal. So they're always trying to achieve the next thing. Where if you're a growth-oriented mindset, you want to reach the goal, but you want to keep going. You want to continue to grow and improve in whatever you do. Hope mindset, what do I get out of it? Goal mindset, how long will it take? And growth mindset, how far can I go? Can I keep going? Can I get better and better and better in everything I'm learning? And Warren Buffett says the best investment you can make is in yourself. The more you learn, the more you earn. So if your goal is to someday do well for yourself and to accomplish well, keep investing in yourself. So my son starts here at OSU in 2 weeks. He's going to be in the engineering program, so he really likes math. And he keeps telling me, Dad, your math is wrong, but this is the math I believe in. And so I've come up with this math that I believe intentionality, habits, and time we invest equal growth. And that will help us to continue growing throughout our entire life. So I want to break that down into individual pieces for you. First thing I want you to know is growth is not automatic. Just by getting up in the morning, you're not growing. You're not getting any better. You're not advancing in whatever goals or achievements you want to advance in. So we have to be very intentional about what we are doing. We need to know what it is we want to accomplish, and so that we can gain the right skills necessary and invest in those areas to be successful. I'm sure you've all seen this person, right? The person that has been at the job for 10 years, is sad, and we say he has 10 years of experience when really we all know it's 1 year of experience 10 times. Because the individual is not growing, they're not getting better, they're not learning new things, trying new things. My friend Jeffrey also reminded me, the nice thing about the rubber band is right after lunch, if you put it on your wrist, you can snap yourself to stay awake. Just FYI, that's another advantage. And it is great if you put it on your wrist or put it in your pocket. When you go home tonight, what I want you to do is use that rubber band to think about one thing that you can improve based on what we're talking about now. So John Wooden says, when opportunity comes, it's too late to prepare. I think this is a really important thing. We want to make sure that we are working and growing all along, so when that opportunity comes, we're ready for it. I hear a lot of people say, well, when I get that promotion, or when I get that new job, then I'll start doing something. But we need to really prepare ahead of time. So just recently, I had a great opportunity to create a 40-hour course for AWS. And you'd think, I got asked to do it, I put together the outline, I put it together. But this was actually a 25-year journey to be ready to put that material together. See, when I moved to Columbus after getting my degree, I didn't know much about networking. The computers back then were 286s, so they didn't have a lot of power. And there used to be a shop on Bethel Road that would sell old computer hardware. And you could buy them for like $25. It was pretty amazing. And it's not because inflation was that low, it's because nobody wanted that piece of equipment. And it was not Micro Center either, it was some small place there. And so I would buy them and I would network them together. I would run web servers, database servers, figure out how to get all that networking working together. And I, of course, because it was 286s, some 386s, I was using Linux, right when Linux was starting to hit. And I even had managers who say, why are you wasting your time learning Linux? Nobody's ever going to use a free operating system. So that was the first step in the journey that would happen 25 years later. Then several years later, I'm running COHAA, and we have a presenter come in, and he's talking about AWS. And this is the time when AWS had two services, S3 and EC2. That was it. But I knew that as he was describing what you could do with those services, I was like, this is going somewhere. I can do things with this that I couldn't do with the hardware that I had been buying. So I started getting really excited about AWS and what I could do with it. I've used it on multiple clients now. Then I'm attending a lot of conferences and they're talking about Hadoop. And I'm like, man, I'm really not getting anything out of these presentations. I don't feel like I know anything more about Hadoop than before I walked in. And so I describe it as I'm attending these sessions in anger because I'm not getting what I want. So I created my own Hadoop workshop that I did at multiple conferences. So I learned about how Hadoop works and how to write code for Hadoop and gained some skills. I'm not an expert in Hadoop, but I can do some things. So last year when I was approached, Chris, can you put together some AWS training? And it needs to include the networking. It needs to include Linux, and it needs to include EMR, which is their Hadoop implementation. Because I had spent all that time investing, even though there was no obvious return on it at that time, it prepared me for 26 years later and everything in between. Because as you probably know, Linux is everywhere. AWS is just about everywhere, and Hadoop may not be everywhere, but it did help prepare me for being ready to do that material. So, I forgot where I was going. Oh, so what can we do to help with that growth plan? How can we be intentional about what we're doing? Well, I'd say first is identify what your purpose is in life. Look around, find out what really motivates you, what gets you excited, what gives you energy, because that's probably close to, if not exactly, what is your purpose. Also, I'd analyze those gifts that you already have. Do you have a gift in speaking? Do you have a gift in writing? Are you really hospitable? You know, where are your strengths? Are you strong in math, engineering? Ask other people around you too. How do they see your strengths, not just the strengths that you see in the mirror? And then take inventory of those. And then look around and figure out where the gaps are. Talk to other people who are doing what you want to do. Find out what skills do they need to get there and try to fill those gaps using books, videos, whatever educational material necessary to fill that gap. So we talked about intentionality. Let's talk about habits. Isn't she the cutest little girl ever? I mean, I had to put this slide in here. So habits. We want to get used to having habits every day. It's those habits that are going to make a difference in what we accomplish. Much like running that half marathon, or if you're trying to lose weight, if you're not working on losing that weight every day, you can't lose it overnight. Same thing happens with what we're doing in the workforce. So you want to get into habits. And because we're talking about growth in our leadership, that is mostly going to be around knowledge. So you want to find sources of knowledge like books and regularly get into those. And we'll talk about some specific books I would recommend later, but you want to get into that habit. And I know a lot of people are like, well, I don't have time to do it. But I'm going to show you, you can probably find a couple minutes a day to at least have a little bit of growth in the value you're going to get out of it. And just like with financial investments, you are going to get compounding interest. So as you learn more, the next thing you're going to learn, the next part of your growth is going to be better and faster. So James Clear uses this power of tiny gains. He says, with these habits, all you want to do is grow 1% each day. If you grow 1% each day, you're going to be on a nice upward slope. What you don't want to do is get 1% worse each day or stay the same, because your competition might be going up and you're either staying the same or going down. And then that's why you see stalling in your career. That's why people aren't following you. So you actually want to make sure that you are regularly getting better. And so for technical people, this is usually a recommendation I recommend. And yours is going to be different, especially if you're not writing code, but some of these you can adapt to what you might be doing. So weekly, I recommend listening to podcasts. Podcasts are a great way to capture information without having to be very active. And you can do it while doing something else, which is ideal. Driving the car, washing the dishes, walking the dog, going out for a run, any type of exercise for that matter. And there's a wide variety of things. So there's podcasts on agile technologies and agile processes. There's ones on technical technologies. There's ones on sales. There's ones on leadership. And so listen to some podcasts. Monthly, I recommend reading a book. Now, I recommend a combination of technical books and business books so that you can become more well-rounded. If you're not doing technical, well, even if you aren't doing technical stuff, sometimes reading a book about the technology that your teams that you're leading might be helpful as well, so you can participate and understand the dialogue that they're going through. So it's still not a bad idea. But for technical people, I especially recommend that they read business books, because oftentimes they're lacking some of those skills. It could be an agile book. It could be whatever book you wish. Now, I know a lot of you aren't technical people, but can anyone guess how many technical books the average technical person reads in a year? 25 to 30 books in a year? 15? 5? It's 1. The average technical person reads 1 book a year. So if you read 1 a month, that means you're 12 times better than your competition. So you've built that much more growth into your process by just reading one book a month. I try to watch a technical video every month too. And what I usually do is if I'm learning a new technology, I will watch a technical video so I get some context to it, and then I'll go read a book about that too. There's some repetition, but usually the book goes in more depth. So I combine these. Attend a user group or meetup. So this is great for the learning opportunity, but it's also great for the networking opportunity as well. And it, like I said, if you ever get into that scenario where you don't have a job, then you have hopefully a group of people you can go back and talk to. And then yearly, I try to attend a conference. I try to develop a class or a workshop, learn a new programming language, and work on some project on the side. So these are the recommendations I give. Now, on the next slide, I'm going to show you what I actually do. And I want you first to know I do not expect my employees or you to do this. I realize that this is an insane list, but this is the power of those habits and how they grow. I didn't start doing all of these at once. I started with one, and then that grew and got me interested in something else, and that got me interested in something else. And I just continued adding to my plate. So the reality is weekly, I listen to 8 to 10 hours of podcasts, and it's a wide variety of podcasts. Some of them are sales, some of them are business, most of them are technical in some nature. Every month, I try to read a technical book, a leadership book, or a business book. So some of the recent ones I've been reading are Q's and programming in TypeScript. I try to watch a video at least once a month. Recently, it was one on Kafka. I actually attend 2 user groups a month. So I do lead the Central Ohio user group. So we usually have a lunch and an evening until COVID. And I try to network with 2 or 3 people a week. So I usually try to take a couple people out to lunch each week. And that's a wide variety of from coworkers to clients to potential clients, people I want to get to know. One other thing I do that I highly recommend that comes out of the book I'll mention later, Never Eat Alone, is I attend Code Mash up in Sandusky each year. And one of the things he recommends in the book is having a conference within a conference, because it's really hard to network when you have hundreds of people. We probably have 60 people in the room. It's hard to network with a lot of people in the room. So his idea of a conference within a conference is that you get a smaller group of people together to network. So at Code Mash, we have 2,500 people. That's really hard to get to know a lot of people. So each year, I throw a dinner and we go to an off-site location, a restaurant, on a night that they don't serve food. And we get about 50 people in the room, and we just have a great networking opportunity around some food, and we have a lot of fun. And that's been really powerful in my career in networking. So try to find events like that. One conference, we were in Boston. I took a bunch of people out to a sailboat, and we went sailing. So lots of opportunities there. Yearly, I try to learn a programming language. TypeScript is what I'm trying to look at this year. I also try to do one side project a year. The last 10 years, as my son's been growing up, it's been more child related, and then it ends up being a session at Kids Mash. I try to speak at 2 to 3 user groups a year. I speak at 5 to 9 conferences a year. I try to attend at least one conference where I don't speak so I can see how they run the event, how it's organized, and try to take some of the best ideas. I also help organize 2 or 3 conferences a year, Code Mash, Stir Trek, and then I try to develop a new 4 to 8 hour workshop for a conference every year as well. So this past year it was IoT from sensing to insights. What I also do with that workshop is when I go to Code Mash, you're allowed 2 speakers for a workshop. What I try to do is I bring somebody else who's a budding speaker who hasn't had the opportunity to speak, and we do it together so that they don't have all the burden on them, and they have an opportunity to see how I help run it, organize it, and put my thoughts together. So like I said, a lot of people say, I don't have time to read. Well, 1 book a month, the math gets really easy. If you read 10 pages a day, that's about 300 pages in a month. And most books, like this one I'm recommending here, Developing the Leader Within You, is less than 300 pages. So you could get it done in 22.4 days. Now my son says I did the math right here. You don't need to check me on it. So then the question becomes, why do we not do these daily habits? And I think the book The Slight Edge gave me an insight I hadn't thought about before. And he basically pointed out that most of these things that I'm talking about doing, reading 10 pages a day, are really easy, but they're also just as easy not to do. And so we get into this complacency, well, I don't really need to read those 10 pages, right? But you're losing the opportunity of that continuous growth and improvement and that exponential growth in the long run. So we were talking about habits. So Jim has another quote: motivation is what gets you started. Habit is what keeps you going. So use these habits to force you to keep going and going and going. The last ingredient to growth is time. And unfortunately, this just takes time. I mean, you have to invest the time. Just like getting rich, most people don't get rich overnight. Instead, they get rich by investing in the stock market and watching their interest compound and compound and compound. So it takes time. It's time in the market, not timing the market. And the same thing applies to our growth as well. It is a grind. We have to do the habits daily, weekly, and yearly in order to improve. And so this is the same set of habits that I was talking about. And what this has turned into in my career is I've developed 3 books, development books, a children's book. I developed a boot camp where I'm helping to educate the next generation in technology. I've spent 20 years leading the Central Ohio Java Users Group. I've spoken at over 100 conferences. I've become a Java champion and a John Maxwell certified coach. And it's all the years of the grinding and getting better and investing in myself that allows me to have a really exciting and fun career. And so John says the passage of time guarantees that we will only get older. It doesn't guarantee that we're going to get better. Again, we have to invest in those improvements. Now, I'm the type of person that if people taught theory, I usually fall asleep and I'm not interested. I like tactics. I like very concrete recommendations of things to do. So the rest of this is going to provide some concrete things that you might be able to apply. My first concrete tactic in growth is having immovable walls. And what does that mean? That means committing to doing something that can't change. So speaking at a conference is one of those things. If I commit to speaking on a topic, they are likely not going to change the date just for me. Well, fortunately, Path to Agility did. They pushed it back a couple months so that I could be ready. It wasn't for me. But that means I have a very concrete date. So I am going to make progress because I don't want to stand on stage and look silly in front of people. So I often commit myself to something like that in order to force myself to get it done. And that's part of the reason I feel like I've been able to accomplish a lot. I think having a vision board. So if you look at your purpose and you build a board with what your purpose is and what you want to accomplish so that you can look at it frequently. You can put it in front of yourself, whether it's on the mirror or the refrigerator, and see that it gives you something to strive for and strive for frequently. Another important part of your growth is a second brain. So this is being able to organize your thoughts, your information in a digital format. And there's lots of different ways of doing this, a lot of different tools. Notion is a big one that is talked about right now. I happen to use OneNote. You can use whatever you want. And I drop all my notes into OneNote. I have the ability to search it, find it. There may be better alternatives that you might find, but having some place to keep everything in one location as opposed to scattered all over can be really helpful. For doing habits, one technique that's worked for me is called habit stacking, and there's multiple definitions of habit stacking. The one I like to use is if you already have a habit, you're already doing something, attach another habit to it. So most people, hopefully, everyone in here brushes their teeth twice a day. So if you want to make something else a new habit, do it when you brush your teeth. Or for me, I take my dog out as soon as I get up in the morning because they need to do their business. And while they're out in the backyard, I do my push-ups then. So I've stacked that habit together to make sure that I won't forget the other one. It's really important to do reviews to make sure that you are growing and that you're accomplishing what you want to accomplish. So weekly, quarterly, and yearly, review the goals that you've written, review what your growth plan is and how you want to get better, reflect on what's been working, where have you had wins, and where maybe you've struggled and where you can improve, and what are the lessons that you've learned along the way to make you better. Another technique I find is to have a team challenge. So maybe get the people on your team together and say, why don't we all do this together? Or maybe you all do something different, but you challenge each other to accomplish something by a certain date. Then you have some motivation and some support along the way. Now, one thing I think a lot of people don't think about is networking with your growth. Who do you need to network with? Who has already accomplished those goals that you want to accomplish? So John Maxwell loves to tell the story of a person who came up after a presentation and said, wow, that was great. I want to do what you do. And John says, no, I don't think you do. And he's like, no, really, I want to do what you do. John said, I'm not really sure you do. And he goes, really, I want to be on stage and selling books and all this stuff. And John says, are you willing to do what I did to get here? And that person's like, maybe not. So find somebody who has accomplished those things. Ask them, how did they get there? What skills did they need? What road did they travel? Who did they have to network in order to get there? And what you'll find is the proximity principle. They will pull you along, just like I invite potential speakers to come speak with me at CodeMash. They might pull you along and help you along the way too. One of those types of networking opportunities is a mentor. Again, a specific person who's been there can help you along and hold you accountable. Now, sometimes these people make a lot of money. Do you know what they're called? Executive coaches, right? So maybe you don't need to go that far, but there is a whole field just geared towards mentoring people along the way in the path. So find your own executive coach or mentor. Another recommendation I'd like to recommend is eat the frog first. Now, I don't know how I found this picture. I think this is a classic, but it's the idea of there are some things along that journey you're not going to want to do. So do those first, because now once you've gotten the bad taste, you've gotten past that bad taste, everything should be much better from that point on. And then finally, create a growth journal. Journal along your path, what you're doing. So how did I grow today? Could be one of your entries. And what did I learn today? And then how can I continue growing into the future? Now this, I think, is really important. I tell this to all of my consultants. You should be tracking what you're learning, what you're doing each day, so that you have a history that you can go back. And it's not just for consultants. I recommend this for everybody. Because at some point in time, you're probably going to be looking for that next job. You're going to have to update your resume. You're going to have to get ready for an interview. And if you've done this growth journal and journaled what you're learning, what you're applying each day, then updating your resume, getting ready for an interview is easy. You just go back through that list. And I have an app on my phone that looks like Excel. I keep track of that every day. I have about 15 years worth of entries that I can use to prepare for those things. So let me show some resources that I would recommend. Before I do that, I think you've all know who that is. And so Bill Gates is probably a pretty busy person, and yet he finds time to read about 50 books a year. And he stresses that readers are leaders and leaders are readers. So I'm highly recommending you read books, even though that may not be the most popular thing. They feel antiquated, and that's like your grandparents' thing to do when they learn. But a good book will actually help you to dive deeper into a topic than most other sources. So one of the books I mentioned earlier, Never Eat Alone, I highly recommend this book. This is a networking book, but not your grandparents' networking book. My favorite chapter is called Conference Commandos, to give you an idea. Developing the Leader Within You 2.0 is a fantastic book if you're starting on your journey or you want to start focusing on your leadership journey. How to Win Friends and Influence People, Pragmatic Thinking and Learning. So I always recommend this book to people that are starting on a journey, because if your goal is to grow and to learn, learning how to learn is a good idea. This book may not be the most appropriate for you because it does have a slight bent towards technical people, but it does have a lot of applicable learning activities. 7 Habits of a Highly Effective People. And just recently I read the book Cues, which I think was fantastic. And it talks about how to communicate to people and how they read nonverbals and colors and all that type of stuff. I thought I was familiar with it, but this brought up a lot of things that I hadn't even thought of. As a matter of fact, one of them is right here that I put into action. So we're going to do a giveaway later on, and they recommend having presents that are wrapped because it causes dopamine and gets people excited. So hopefully you're full of dopamine right now because that was my intent. So I'm taking what I'm learning and applying it right here. I'm also not standing behind the podium because they said that's not a good idea either. That makes you feel closed off. Leadership as language is a great one. And if you want to learn more about that second brain topic, building a second brain taught you how to go through it, how to use some of the tools, and how to apply that information as you're doing it. Also, habits. I talked about habits are a big deal. I've read all these habit books. I especially like James Clear's Atomic Habits. And if you're not aware, James Clear actually lives here in Columbus. So it is possible you could run into him on the bike trail or something like that. But learn about these habits, and a lot of them are suggesting you don't have to do a lot of it, but just get into a small habit and then grow that habit. So James particularly talks about just going to the gym, not actually working out, but spend a week just going to the gym. That gets you used to putting on your clothes, getting into the car, driving there. And then maybe the next week you add doing one exercise and then leaving, and just slowly grow those. Some of the podcasts I listened to that I thought would be more relevant to a wider audience, not all technical, are these. So John Maxwell has a fantastic podcast. A Geek Leader, Coaching for Leaders is really, really good. EntreLeadership, it's not just all about entrepreneurship, it's about leadership mostly. And then How I Built This is a great one because you get to hear stories about people who have accomplished great things and started great businesses. Meetups, user groups. We're so lucky in Columbus to have a lot of them. A lot of them are technically oriented, but some are not, just like the one that's putting on their conference here. Attend conferences. So try to find as many as you can. Try to get involved in those. These are my collection of my name tags over all the conferences. If you're getting into the habits, there are plenty of applications that you can use to help track those habits. And so you could download one of those. If you want it to be a little bit more fun, some of them are gamified as well. And then I want to end the presentation with this idea. So one of my favorite podcasts is Freakonomics. If you haven't listened to it, I think it's amazing. And their host, Stephen Dubner, ever since the pandemic happened, has ended with this quote: "Take care of yourself, and if you can, somebody else." And I think we are so fortunate in our industry that a lot of us do have the ability to help take care of somebody else. So I want to show and recommend some opportunities for you. So I already talked about one, which is bringing a new speaker with me to speak at CodeMash each year. But one of the things I like to do at CodeMash is they have a children's conference called Kids Mash, and I like to inspire kids by teaching them about STEM, basic electronics, by building lightsabers, IoT devices, and programming by building binary clocks of a Raspberry Pi Zero. And then one year, I 3D scanned the kids' heads, and then we 3D printed them in the 3D printing lab. And we were using an iPad with a Structure I/O device on it to do it, which was pretty cool because then we could attach it to an Apple TV, and up here, everyone could watch the model being formed around the child's head. Just last week, I did the lightsabers again with 2 programs in Columbus where they are free and reduced lunch type of children that they had a summer camp program for, and they just needed one-day activities to do. And then the other thing I do is I'm helping coach the Thomas Worthington High School track team. I'm a throwing coach there. And I think this is a great and exciting activity, and it's super rewarding as well. So these are 5 of my athletes. 2 of them were state qualifiers in indoor track. 4 of them placed at districts. 1 of them was a regional qualifier. And so that's been really rewarding. And I bring this track and field up mostly because we have a big need right now. There's lots of stories, and I'm getting emails as a coach almost every day about the need for coaches and referees in Ohio because we're having a hard time getting them, partly because of COVID, then partly because they aren't treated well, unfortunately. But if you have an opportunity, it's a great way to give back to the community and young people to help them advance. So, Jim has one other quote I love. Set a big enough goal that the process of achieving it, you become someone worth becoming. So he sometimes uses the same quote with becoming a millionaire. He said it's not about achieving the $1 million, it's about what you had to do to grow to become that person that could earn or make that $1 million. So I hope today you are going to grow 1% better today, tomorrow, and every day after. And hopefully you can take something from this presentation and apply it. Not everything, maybe just one little thing right now, and grow that. And who knows where you could go. It could lead to a whole lifetime of growth and improvement. So I saw some of you taking photos. You can either go to this URL to get the slides or take a photo of that. And I do want to give away the door prizes. So do you want to grab the pieces of paper? So we have three books. They're all the same book. While we're collecting those, does anyone have any questions or comments? Yes.
My name is Cindy. I'm in the PMI organization. And here in Columbus, we have started in the last few years a PMI outreach group where we encourage project managers, VAs, anybody to help out a local nonprofit. I don't know if other groups have that same kind of thing, but that's been really cool to work with.
I've not heard of anyone else doing that. That's fantastic.
Just a few more.
There you go. I got one more.
Okay. Getting my workout in up and down the steps. Hi, everybody else? I know we got a few. Sorry. Anybody else? I think there's some ladies up here, maybe. You guys back there? Okay. Do I have all the slips? Okay. Oh. There's a quite height difference here, right? Okay.
Her husband makes me look short.
That's true. God, I have to be able to read it. Aws. Aws. Okay,
Come on up.
come on up. It's on. There's a lot in here. Okay. Tanya Johnson.
Thank you.
Come on up. Here's the next one. Please. Oh, that's two. How many?
I have 3.
Oh, you have 3? Oh, I didn't see 3. Nice. One more. Sean Barton. Come on down. Want me to take those?
Sure. Thanks so much for attending. I hope you enjoy the rest of Path to Agility.